Uh, as the sign says, Dynamo, Dynamo. Know all about it. John Wehmer is going to be our presenter. He's with Cromwell Architects and Engineers out of Little Rock, Arkansas. And we are pleased to present John Wehmer.
This is about AMAX providing the food first.
Oh, and thank you to AMAX for providing with us with food and drinks. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And without further ado.
All right, can y'all hear me now? Can y'all hear me?
Go ahead, you're good.
Okay, y'all can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I thought I had it on mute or something. All right, hey everyone, thanks for coming. This is my first webinar, so sorry if I'm a little nervous and jumping around the place a little bit. Yeah, I'm John. I'm the BIM specialist here with Cromwell Architects Engineers. We're a multidisciplinary firm here in Brook. I'll get to more of that later, but first I want to, there we go, get to know a little bit about y'all and who you are. So if y'all can go to minty.com, it's this cool little polling website, and then enter in the code 181217. It's got just two questions for y'all, just trying to figure out who all's in the audience here. All right, we got one. All right, well, it looks like a pretty good split between engineering and other. I'm definitely curious here in a little while to find out what the other is for y'all. And then we got one more question. Let me get this onto the next one. So, the engineering one's still growing more. Alrighty. And then how familiar are y'all with Revit and with Dynamo? Alrighty, it looks like we got a pretty good distribution of Revit hanging out towards the pretty proficient with it, and a lot of Dynamo newbie. Fantastic. I really like teaching Dynamo, so I'm excited to be able to teach y'all from scratch some Dynamo. Let's hop back over to PowerPoint. And then, yeah, a little bit about me. I went to University of Arkansas for mechanical engineering, then went on to Northwest Arkansas Community College, drafting and design. I'm BIM specialist. I'm also our Revit and Dynamo instructor. I really enjoy teaching and training people. It's just fun. I'm also a Autodesk certified professional in Revit mechanical systems, and just got my electrical system certification last week at AU. That was pretty cool. And then a little bit about Cromwell Architects Engineers. We've been architecture and engineering firm for about 130 years now. And we were the first firm in Arkansas to use computer-aided drafting. Way back then, the big clunky machines, very little memory. We also had a hand in designing the first LEED certified building in Arkansas. That was pretty fun. And then we're also one of the first documented architecture and engineering partnerships in the country. And yeah, enough about me and that. Let's get on to Dynamo, the stuff everyone's here for. All right, what we're going to cover today is Dynamo interface, just basic how to get around in it, navigation. Node anatomy, what each piece of the node does and how it talks to the next node further down the line. Data flow, it's a lot like stoichiometry. You just got to make sure that your units are right, your data type is right. That's data flow and formats, node versus code, the pre-built versus what you can write yourself, how you feed and then receive information out of nodes, and then packages. Those are really fun. You can download free packages. Well, all of Dynamo is free because it's a third-party open source software. So people enjoy writing the stuff in their free. And then we got some best practices, helpful tips and tricks. And then time provided, I definitely want to get through and kind of show a setup graph, what it entails. And then a more useful example for a day-to-day drafter is how to place equipment with Dynamo. Let's get started. All right, so this is our Dynamo interface. As you can see, we've got this big open area for working. That's where we're going to drop our nodes that we see from the node library number 2. And you can just go through and you can see it's separated into 2 pieces where it's got out of the box, and then it's got a separator for add-ons. Those are all packages that you can download from other users. Number 3 just shows you what your current library that you're in. And then number 4 is the menu tabs. It's very intuitive. It's Windows-based, so it's intuitive, and it's a lot like Revit. And then the execution bar down on the bottom, that's when you're ready to make Dynamo talk to Revit. That's how you push and pull data from Revit or push and pull from Excel, whatever kind of function you're going to be running. And we got the node anatomy. Dynamo is at its core a visual scripting program, so it's very visual. It likes to show you what you do have connected, what you don't have connected. Don't think the mouse pointer does work. Then whenever it's light gray, it just means that you put nothing into that node, so it's not going to pass any data along. That's a really easy way to see what you have connected. And then these are the wires, little connection wires. They tell your data where to go to. And you can have an output go to as many different boxes as you want. So you could have 10 watch nodes if you really want. But you can have 1 input per node block. At the top of every one of them is a node name. And they're pretty descriptive with this watch. It just shows you the data that's going through it. When you run it, that data will populate this little box here. Oh, I'm running back slides. And then it's the magic box. That's where all the goodness happens inside of the codes. That magic box can be anything from a Python script, C#, or it can just have other nodes nested within it, kind of like a nested family. It just helps to clean up your graphs, and I'll show you more of that later. And then here's the output connector. That will send all of your data wherever you need it to go. And then as you see it dark gray, that means that this is connected. And in our case, there's no data flowing through it, but it's just telling you that it's connected. And data flow. Data, just like reading in English, it will always go left to right. It doesn't matter how high or low on the X or on the Y coordinate it is. It will always go left to right. As you can see over here, I like to think of it as a plane just going across. And whatever it hits, it follows those wires, and it just calculate, do its thing. And then over here you can, I was having fun playing with adding some images to it. There we go, moving that box out of the way. And then data type format. This is probably one of the most important parts of Dynamo, whether you're a beginner or an expert. You have to manage your data type. For people who remember physics class, you always had to change your units over. Programming is the same thing. And it's basically broken down into these 7 different types. Well, 6 different types. You got the Boolean, and that's, true, false, yes, no, or in computer, 1, 0. You might notice that in Revit, you can use a lot of those 1 zeros when you're making formulas for checkmark boxes. Dynamo likes talking with Revit in that same fashion. Integer, a whole real number, or a whole number. So, -2, 0, 42, the meaning of life. Any number, any real number. You can't do pi, you can't do I, you can't do mu naught. It has to be a real number, decimal, fractional, any kind of sort like that. So -32.154, 0, 42. And a variable. Variable is just a letter used to represent a set or a list of data. If you're using Python or C#, you can use the variables to define a function that you want to do. But for everything that we're going to go over, we're just going to use variables to pull different lists of data. And I'll show you how to do that. String or double, as it's called in programming a lot, is just raw text. It's at the most basic, it's hello world. And then a list. A list is a structure of data that separates individual value of input data. Basically, with a list, it just means that you're putting more than one piece of data together in the same input. And they definitely have their places, and we'll go over that too. And then a null. A null just means that the computer can't figure out what you're trying to do. That means, you might have fed a number into an integer. You might have fed a number into an integer, or you might have fed a string into a number. It just means that you're not following the right format.
Hey, turn off your mic.
All right, and then we got node versus code. From so many people that I've talked to, is a major point that defines when you move from being comfortable with Dynamo to writing your own scripts and writing your own program with Dynamo. Node, I love using the nodes. They are amazing. They're easy to use. They're easy to do. And it's super easy to find your errors. When you have an error, this whole thing turns yellow, and it's just like, hey, look. And it'll give you a brief, like pseudo-computer language description. What's wrong with it? It's kind of like Revit. It'll alert you when something's wrong, but the language that it uses isn't quite comprehensible all the time. Some of the cons of it are it's slightly heavier on computer RAM. So if you get to a large project setup script like we're going to go through later, it can slow you down by a little bit. It does require some setup for specialized functions. That's when downloading packages comes into play. And then the code. You see we got the set parameter by name. This is the same element.setParameter by name, but written in code format. It's extremely reliant on your RAM. You can put 8, 10, 20, 100 things in one code block, and it'll spit it out super quick. It's very customizable. You have to know a little bit of programming, or at least be semi-familiar with the content of it, but it's a lot of fun to write. And you have way more capabilities out of the box. So if for some reason you can't download the packages, you can learn how to write your own node block or your own code blocks. Definitely the cons to that, they're not new user friendly. First time that I saw code and I was a few months into Dynamo, my head was spinning. I didn't know what the heck I was looking at. I was like, holy cow, how do I manipulate this data and what do I know to feed it? A little water there. And since it's all code, it's hard to find user errors because this thing will only turn yellow if something is really wrong. It won't turn yellow just to be like, hey, I think you should do this and this to this node. It will turn yellow when it just will not work. Then, yeah, the input-output of data. You really have to watch your data formatting. 99% of the issues that I have, even today, whenever I'm writing graphs and codes, is data formatting. I'm not minding that I'm talking to, an MEP space and I'm trying to get a BTU load, and then I accidentally try and write it with an MBH load. You really have to watch that part. That's my biggest hang up, is I'll forget to reformat stuff. And because of that, Dynamo talks to Revit. It talks with Revit very well. They're best friends. They can talk about everything. You can reach into Revit for almost anything that you want using Dynamo. There are a few things that Dynamo just cannot talk about Revit. And those are a few things that aren't exposed in the API, like home run wires on home run arrowheads on wires for electrical wiring. Don't know why, but you cannot change the arrowhead size and shape. Whether it's within Revit or within Dynamo, you can't reach into the programming and change it for some reason. And that's one of the biggest frustrations, is you want to change something, but you find out that Dynamo can't touch it. And then, double check that your data is properly formatted, and of course, triple check that it's properly formatted. It'll save you a lot of time, and it's a great habit to get into. And then quadruple check that your data is properly formatted. It will really save you time, and again, it's a great habit to get into. And yes, here's where we're getting into the packages. There's a lot of people out there that have done some really good work writing some really good packages. Like you can see some of the ones down here. Archilab, that's one of the most famous packages in the world. People use that because it can do almost anything that you need it to. That and Clockwork. They are amazing, and they talk with Revit very smart, very fast, and very, very seamlessly. Dynamo's great out of the box, but your packages will take your graphs to a whole nother level. They'll take you from, basic Revit integration to being able to set up entire projects and create hundreds of views in a matter of minutes and apply view templates. Downloading the packages is super easy. It's within the Dynamo interface. You just go up to your little package button, hit search for package. Sometimes it takes 10 to 20 seconds for this package dialog to pop up. That's normal behavior. What it's doing is it's talking to the Dynamo website and refreshing its packages. And then you can search what you want in there. Like say I was looking for Clockwork, I would type in Clockwork, and it'll narrow it down and it'll bring up the best searches for you. We'll go into that here in a little bit too. Best practices. The only reason I bring this up is because I have failed a lot at things, whether it's not keeping my data properly formatted or getting lost and falling down a rabbit hole and not doing what I set out to start to do in the script. The best way to curb that is to make a flow chart, even if it's as messy as the one right here. Just having, hey, I want the user to do this, and then we're going to take that data and we're going to distribute it to create some working views, create construction document views, create the sheets. Take those construction document views on the sheets and put the views on the sheets. And then send all that to post-processing, where you can assign scope boxes to your views, assign a phase to them, sheet order, discipline order, browser sorting, whatever you want to do to them. If you want to put your name in them, you can put your name in them. And always build for expansion, because maybe later on down the line you realize, oh, there's something else that I want to have this create. I want to have it create some views that we can take to a project, like a project kickoff meeting. Views that are stripped down, where they just have the walls, doors, furniture, windows. Those have been monumentally helpful. So you're like, oh, I want to create that. Or if you want to assign something else out here, you can have it do that later on. Just always build for expansion. Always assume that you're going to get better with your script, with your graph. You're always going to move forward. And then avoid hard coding. Hard coding is just where you use a lot of text to drive your script. It makes it not parametric and not flexible, to where it's just good for that one thing. I've seen people use this and they'll have 8 or 10 scripts to to do the same thing for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire, life safety, energy services. And it all does the same function when they could have had a user just drop down a menu and select what they want. So hard coding, it's great and it gets the job done quickly, but it causes you more hassle than it's worth in the future. And again, don't get lost in your script. I can't tell you how many times I have started one and I've been like, oh, take that data and distribute it. Come up here, oh, I got my views. Oh, I can do this and this and this, and before I know it, I'm way off in the distance, and I've wasted half a day, but I haven't done any of this work. I have almost next to nothing to show for it. If you have an idea, sticky note it. An hour later, if you still think it's a great idea, jump in and apply that to it. There have been a lot of times that I've thought, oh, hey, this would be a fantastic thing to add to this script. I look at it later and I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I waste my time on this? That is a horrible thing. It's just go down my script and it's not going to be useful. So, use your time wisely. Example time. Got through that a little quicker than I was expecting. I'm a fan though. For the first one, let's do some mechanical equipment placing. This is really helpful for, placing mechanical equipment if you have a repetitive area. Here we got a project that we did a while back. It's a retirement village. This is the first building, I believe, of it. And let's get this pulled over a little bit. All right. So say we need to place a whole bunch of air handling units. And you can use this for any discipline that you want. We need to place a whole bunch of air handling units, and we want to put them in these mechanical closets. And that's a room, I believe. Let's wait for it to stop regenerating. Yep, that's a room. So say we want to go in and we want to immediately place it in it. There might be 100 of those in the project, and I don't know about you, I don't know about your engineers. I don't want to place 100 of them in a project. That, to me, would just be extremely boring. So let's fire up Dynamo. Oh, to get to Dynamo, you go to Manage. I have mine docked down here just because I like to dock the buttons. If you ever want to dock them, just right-click and hit Add to Quick Access Toolbar, and that'll add it technically up here, but then you can bump them down low. So let's fire up Dynamo. Sometimes it takes a second to load. This one's a live example I was going to do, so this file has not already had this work done in it. The project setup, I've already created the views, created everything that we're going to do in that one, because I think y'all be bored if you sat here for 20 minutes looking at the loading bar. Oh man, Dynamo is really taking its time today. And it's a normal thing for your computer to do the not responding. Dynamo and Revit take a lot out of your computer, so save and synchronize frequently. That's another best practice that I should bring up. And you can just click over here and do your open, but I always recommend going to the open and then clicking your family or clicking your Dynamo file that you need and making sure that open and manual execution mode is always checked. If you open it in automatic, there's a chance that it will crash your computer. It's very hard on your RAM if you're not careful. Alrighty, that one opened up pretty quick. Widen up this screen and go through this a little bit. Alrighty, so whenever you start off, you always have to bring data in from Revit. You have to know what you're looking for. In this case, we're looking for rooms because we want to find all of those rooms that have the name mechanical closet or mech closet. So we're going to get the category of room. And this is literally just the categories that you see when you go to visibility graphics and stuff like that. Anything, you can reach into Revit and get anything that you need on this list. See, it's quite comprehensive. So we're going to click out here and stay with our rooms. And then all elements of category. If you leave it on just category, Dynamo is just going to be like, oh, you just want the category room, and give you the name room. But if you do all elements of category, it's going to grab you every room in the project. So let's hit run. I do have this one frozen over here so that it won't try and run our whole graph and take forever. Alrighty, so see, we got just rooms. If you had that singular without this all elements of category, that's all it would display. But since you have the all elements of category, it's going to give you every room in the project along with their ID number, so that you can click this and it should have brought up a little dialog box for us in Revit. But usually whenever you double click it, it'll bring up and it'll say no good views can be found, which from anyone who's clicked a schedule and then highlight and model, we know that's a lie. It's going to find you a view almost instantly. But that's one way that you can go through. But I don't know about you, but all these rooms, that name doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know what to do with all that. I don't remember my rooms by their ID number that I place them. So let's come over here. This is where you're getting a specific parameter. And if you hover over the name on most of the boxes, or on most of the nodes, they'll tell you what their purpose is. And then you see at the very end of that, it's got parameter name, string, and then var, bracket, bracket, dot, dot, bracket, bracket. That means that it's looking for a variable type parameter. So you can enter numbers, you can enter names, you can enter anything that you want into that bracket, just so long as it has a number like this after it. And you'll experiment later on and you'll realize that there's a bunch of different ways to data into that. And out of all the elements that we're getting there, we're going to look for its name. So that would be the same thing as going over coming over here. Of course I had it and then I lost it. There we go. Coming over here and looking for name, Met Closet. That's all it's doing. It's just jumping over to the Revit file real quick, and it's looking for all the names. So once it does that, it comes back with 335 names. And they all correspond exactly to how they are on this list. So we know that's a mechanical closet right there. And it gives you the names out of everything in here. And then after that, we're telling it to go search for a room name, mechanical closet. And then I also have, for the sake of this presentation, a little wire drawn down here, just so that you can see how we can, sorry, my computer's being a little slow today. Alrighty, just so you can see how we can, oh, too much, how we can play. I cannot find a nice middle ground here. That'll work. This is the wire that came straight from getting the room names. Watch nodes are, again, a great way to monitor your graph. They don't take up hardly any memory, and they show you what data is going through. And then you can also sort them. You can put them alphabetical if you want. There's a bunch of different ways to sort them, but just the default sort code, or sort node, we'll put them alphabetically. Not planning on doing anything with that data. I just wanted to show y'all some of how you can organize it. I'm in our conference room, remote link to my my workstation, so it's a little laggy. And then over here, we're going to unfreeze this, but I'm going to go ahead and leave that frozen just so it doesn't run our whole graph just yet. All right, so we're going to search for a room name. Keep scrolling. All right, good. We're going to search for a string that contains room name, and that's going to tell you, you feed in that variable as a string, and then you're searching for Met Closet. And you can ignore the case if you wanted to. I usually leave it because see, default value false. I usually leave it on that. And that will tell you, drop this guy back down, scroll all the way up. All right, that will look at each individual piece and tell you if that name contains Met Closet. So we got instance 0, Met Closet, true. 1, restroom, that's false. You go all the way down to instance 5, Met Closet. It will give you a true false value for every one of them. But as you notice, it doesn't have a number after it anymore. After we went through this, get parameter value by name, it removed that element ID from it. You can't find that element anymore in your model now. You know the name of it, but you can't. Dynamo can't run the direct element anymore. It can get you that data and manipulate the data all day long. It doesn't have anything to reapply it to. That's where list filter by bool mask comes in. That will create you a dictionary that takes this variable as your list and your boolean value that you had here. And let me scroll over just a little bit. And it will match, too far. It will match every true with the corresponding room. That way you can reapply it. You can be like, oh, so everything in this list right here, you can see it breaks it down into in list, out list. The in list is everything that contains room, mechanical closet. So that is, let me click that again. That is all 74 of these instances. And I say 74 because in programming, you start at 0. You don't start at 1. So you see we have 74 no, I don't want to search anything. We have 74 instances here. Why is it trying to get me to still search? There we go. But this number will only go to, that is not what I wanted. Boy, long day today. Oh, well, I'll just deal with that down there. Okay, apparently it's... But as you can see, it only goes to 73. That's just the way a lot of programming work. Instead of starting at 1, they start at 0. So that's one thing that will take a little bit of getting used to once you start referencing data and writing your own code, is that it's not going to start at 1. So now we take, if I stop zooming in and out like a crazy person, now we take all that data, as you can see, that comes from the end that corresponds to those R mechanical closets. We take that and we're going to start drawing lines on our model. This node so that we don't bog it down and start going crazy. We're going to start drawing lines, just little temporary Dynamo lines. And you can see it gives you the start, the end, and it's 4 segments for every line point. So let's click this button right here, and we go to enabling 3D within Dynamo. So we're going to zoom out on our graph, and we're going to find where Dynamo is drawing these lines at. And remember that it talks with Revit. So wherever Revit is at in the model, we are way off here. See, our project center is way different than Dynamo's Dynamo center. And as you can see, it found all the mechanical rooms, and it just drew little reference lines in there. It drew the boundary of the room, and then it drew the center point of those lines so that it could get a little centroid there. So we're going to go back over to our node. And to get back to nodes, you just hit this one, Enable Graph View. And you can switch between the two pretty easily. That drew us little chords, and then a polygon to go with them, and then a point at the middle of the polygon. The point at that middle of the polygon is where the center of your Revit family is going to be placed. So it's very important that whenever you build your Revit families, you build them on the center. I've seen some people do sloppy modeling and just build it, often quadrant 2 or quadrant 1. wherever they really feel like it. And just alone for Revit, that's bad practice. But then you try and communicate and program with it, and that's just, it's going to be more hassle for you. And then family types, let's drop that down. We don't want a couch. We want, let's do, oh, I passed up what else. Let's do the gas-fired furnace. So now we have a family that we're going to put here. It's going to take that center reference plane of the family, look for this polygon center, and place it right on top of that. So let's hop over to Revit. Oh, I forgot. Within Dynamo, you have to collapse in order to get the Revit because it wants to be on top. It wants to be the popular one. So it's going to, that center point, you can see it's already drawn some temporary lines in our file, and it's got a little center point right here underneath that mechanical closet tag. If I can ever grab that tag. Alrighty, that little point right there is where it's going to drop the middle of that family. So let's grab our Dynamo again. And just for the sake of it, I'm going to put these together. There we go. Then I'm going to come over here and hit run. We're going to be dropping a lot of families in plate on this model, so it can take a minute. Don't be surprised, Dynamo is a slower form of programming than C# and direct Python interface, but it's a much easier to get the hang of. So Dynamo will definitely save you time rather than drafting and doing everything by hand. But be prepared to be looking at this spinning circle a lot while you use Dynamo. If you were doing this on a project, now would be a great time to, go get a cup of coffee, go do what you need to, go get a snack, kind of take your time and catch up on the way back to the desk. If I thought this was going to take more than 2 or 3 minutes, I would have already done this and had a file ready for y'all, but I'm pretty sure, based on my testing today, it's not going to take more than a minute or 2. So hopefully it doesn't. And as you can see, Dynamo says it's not responding. That's pretty normal. There we go. Now we got our family in place. Let's make the Revit screen big again. I forgot. Dynamo always wants to be on front, so you gotta close down Dynamo, or gotta at least collapse it. Alrighty. So we wanted to put that gas-fired furnace down, and we got the gas-fired furnace. Now let's right-click it and select all instances, visible in view. Let's see how many we placed. We just placed 74 of them. So we basically just went through our entire first floor of the model and placed a whole bunch of those mechanical units. And as you can see, Dynamo still has those little bits still drawn on there, those little blue lines. They'll go away once we close Dynamo. Those are not, even if you printed them as it is, they won't print. It's literally just Dynamo referencing it. So let's go to a little bit more friendly view for this. Let's go to our work sets. Let's see just a better view of what all we created. And then let's turn on our work set display. And as you can see, everything in that pinkish purple is architectural work set, whereas everything in the green is mechanical work set, and that's all mechanical that we just placed. I've helped architects use this for laying out kitchens, laying out bathrooms, laying out bedrooms. It's very useful. It's very helpful, especially for apartment and residential style living like this, where, you know, as you can see, that's a group. It's just like groups. You just, you know, it just runs them throughout your model for you. So it's really helpful. You can basically place any that you want to as long as the family is loaded into your project already. You can also do family modification. You can change types. Like say, I don't have one written for this right now, but say you wanted to change this love seat into a 3 cushion throughout the entire model. You can do that with the Revit or with Dynamo. You can easily, you know, swap them out, which actually now that I've mentioned it, Revit has that really handy select all instances. But say you also wanted to change some parameters and give them separate scheduling features based on what room they're in. With Revit, you would have to go room by room or piece by piece. But with Dynamo, you can have it do multiple functions all at the same time, and it works, you know, seamlessly with Revit. So let's go ahead and close out of this one. Don't want to save our changes. And then let's look at a project setup one. I'm going to close out of this project because this setup graph I'm about to open is really heavy on the computer. So we are literally just going to create a blank project, Imperial, and let's open Dynamo again. After working with Dynamo for a while, you start to realize some of its little quirks, some of its little things that it does that, you know, just don't make any sense or seem like a huge weirdness. One of the things that I've noticed is that loading large scripts is difficult on Dynamo right when you open it. Don't know why. I have found the most luck. Oh, before I jump into that, if you ever need to search for a node, hit right click and it brings up a search bar for you, and you can just type in whatever it is you're looking for. So for some reason, when I start a new graph, place a watch node in there, and then go to open a really large script, it has almost no issues loading it. Of course, now that I say that, it's probably going to freeze this time and crash, but most of the time it doesn't have an issue with it. My control bar for the webinar keeps trying to overtake this area. Here we go. Alrighty, and of course, always make sure that you're opening in manual mode, because as you can see, it opens default and automatic when you start a new graph. So if I open this in automatic, it would be trying to open this and run the program at the same time. That's not what we want to do, not yet. And it is a big graph, so it takes a minute to open. I pared this one down to make it easy to manipulate while we're in, you know, such a short time for this. A great way to organize your graphs is to come up with a little color chart for yourself of what's going to be user selection, what's getting things. In other words, basically just reaching into Revit, grabbing the data, and then doing whatever it wants to with it. What's going to be hard-coded? There are some things that you just have to hard-code with some graphs whenever they're as specific as a project setup. You've got to have a plumbing version, a mechanical version, life safety, fire protection, electrical, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to have to tell it to do some very discipline-specific functions. And then processing that data, basically just, you know, changing the units, changing parameter names, doing what you need to with it, shaping that Play-Doh, shaping that clay for it to create Dynamo things and create Revit things, and then ultimately writing and creating data. These are where Dynamo really shines, the last two. So let's come over here. I cannot get this scrolling thing today. Let's come over here. I am going to freeze this node just so that it doesn't try and run our graph for us. This is all a user interface. Basically, just UI. It's meant that when I execute this run, a dialog box will pop up prompting the user. Oh, it's because my title block is not feeding properly. I'll just feed it all of it. And then anytime you run Dynamo, you have to make a change to it. So switch false. And then run it again. I don't think it ran whenever I did it. Alrighty, let's try this now. It is still giving us error. But the user interface is basically just where you... Ah, that's annoying because I just ran this like an hour and a half ago and it was fun. One more thing. I want to get this working for y'all. Let's remove our end completely. There we go. We were looking for it to process and not be able to do anything with it. It's still not. This always happens. It always... Oh, I should switch it to true. That's... Alright, I apologize for this. I ran it this afternoon and it went just fine. Well, anyways, that's when it would pop up. This one is for, it's my plumbing project setup script. So let me zoom us back in here without zooming crazy fast. It would ask us if we want to create working views, domestic water and drain waste event, overall, medical gas, and then those kickoff print plans that I was telling you about. And then if we want to create them with phases of them, and then it'll ask us what title block we want to use, what scope box. You can basically have it create your entire list for you. And it is being really laggy today. I apologize for the lagginess of it. Then you basically just go through, and this is one of those times when hard coding is a thing. You know, you always have to, you're going to tell it drain, waste, and vent, domestic water. You can't put that on a mechanical one. And then you don't want to flood the user interface with too much stuff. A lot of this is, you know, processing that data. I really expected this to go a lot smoother so that I could show you a very detailed. Here's another where we're getting the name. We're getting our scope box fed into this part. We're getting the name of the scope box. We're looking for overall building. That's the generic one that I just call my buildings, is overall building. We're running it through a test. If it's, you know, if it does equal overall building, then provide, you know, this empty double to it. And if it's false, it provides the element here. You can see how it dots back behind it. Oh man, this is being so slow today. We do not want a close-up of the if statement. Or that. Alrighty. So, apparently my mouse here in the conference room is just right on the edge of the range of where it's good and where it's not. Alright. And then up here we have you'll have to, organize the data that you're putting on your sheet. A lot of these ones that are here are a package that I've created. I'm hopefully going to be releasing it online, so you'll be able to search for it up here in packages and search for package. Hopefully you'll be able to find it online within the next couple of months. I'm doing some, last minute testing on it. And here, say you want to look for Archilab, the most popular, LASBLAB, Archilab.net. That's probably the most popular download on here. As you can see, it's got 118,000 downloads, whereas the next most popular, another Archilab, is 12,000. It's just a fantastic package. I recommend it for pretty much everything. It's got a very wide variety. Oh yeah, see, it's got a couple different sub packages with it. Super helpful. And so these are, you're just processing your data, separating out your data based on what you're trying to create. Oh my gosh. I was really hoping to show y'all a more in-depth view, but it's being laggy. And then this node is a really powerful out-of-the-box node. Floor plan view by level. You feed it your level, and it creates you a floor plan that references that level. So from this, I'm feeding all the levels that the user input selects. In most cases, it's all the levels that are in the project. And then you can get its value associated level, and then you can actually turn that into its own name, which is what I did. I can open up the completed version of this so that y'all can see. Alrighty. So after you run that, you would get all of your working and construction document. Let's open these. So you can turn the level, associated level, into its own view name. So like say it's on level 01, level, or first floor dash 01, that's what our naming convention is. You can actually tell it to clip off everything before the dash, and you just have that 01. And then you can create your own name for it that Dynamo will auto name for you. If that's that drop every nth item, you can split the list off. I don't know why it's being so insanely slow right now. And after you create your views, that's when you can start adding scope boxes, phasing. I put this dynamo.created so that I can schedules, so that I can see what all Dynamo has created. That's a good way to kind of double check yourself and make sure you know what's going on. Like Dynamo created view, it'll tell you. I'm gonna hide those because they're just taking up too much space on here. I clipped off the sheet creating part of this because it would make that file way too big. But you can tell it what subdiscipline you want it to be, title on sheet. Most anything for views, you can use Dynamo to name it. Discipline, phasing, very helpful. I'll have some samples in. I was hoping to distribute like a zip file or a link to it, but if you are interested in it, I'm gonna have my email at the end of this session. Just email me and I'll send you the link to it, and it'll have some sample Dynamo graphs in it for like placing the mechanical equipment, other stuff like that. But I can't do those scripts. So you can have Dynamo go in and create everything for you just super quick. I think altogether it took about 10 minutes for the graph to run earlier today whenever I made all these, which is much faster than having somebody go in, create that view, and assign a view template to it, give it a title on sheet, give it the phase that it needs if you're doing a multi-phase project. And yeah, I really expected that I could walk y'all through this Dynamo graph, but it's being very laggy and glitchy, so I'll probably have to cut that part off. Yeah, I'd like to open it up now to y'all for questions, if anybody has any questions about anything. Anybody? Don't be shy.
John, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hang on. We'll take the mic back to Tracy here.
Alrighty.
She has a few questions.
Hey, John, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, what's up?
Let me get to where they are. Okay, so when using packages, do they expire or become obsolete?
With different versions of Dynamo, you do have to keep up with different packages.
Okay.
Dynamo recently went from 1.3.2 to 2.0.1, I think about 4 months ago, give or take 4 or 6 months ago. And they completely changed the way Dynamo codes. So all the developers of these packages had to go into overdrive and rewrite their entire library. So there is times like, y'all probably noticed that red one whenever we first started here in the beginning. That was because I was using a package that they probably wrote it and they conformed to the newest Dynamo, but then they stopped supporting it and they just deleted their package.
Does that happen often?
It only happens whenever you're really dependent on one node, which is aggravating, but there's usually 3 other nodes to replace it by the time that somebody deletes one.
Okay.
The guy who writes Archie Lab and then the other guy who writes, Rhythm, they are very active in the Dynamo forums board for help and for writing their stuff. And if they see that someone is looking for something really frequently, or if a node got depreciated and it's no longer supported, they'll step in and write their own. And usually theirs are better than the one that they're replacing.
So is there some way that you're notified of that, or is it just your script doesn't run anymore?
It just doesn't run
You got
anymore.
to figure out why.
Yeah. Whenever there's a major update like that 2.0.1 a few months ago,
Yeah.
the Dynamo board was blowing up. All their personal blogs were blowing up. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, Dynamo changed the game and we have to play catch up. We're very sorry, everyone. It's going to be a few weeks until our packages are online.
Okay. And then do you find that there's issues when Revit versions change? Does Dynamo still work? You know, like I wrote a couple of the graphs in 2016 when we upgraded to 18. It seemed like I had to really work with them. Some of them I haven't been able to get working again, but some I did get working again, and it had to do with reloading some packages and stuff. But is that a common problem also?
More than anything, it's common whenever Autodesk changes the name of a parameter. Like they might change it ever so slightly, change the punctuation, the capitalization, or just change a word out. That's when it throws a monkey wrench in your graph. But the updates ever since 2016 haven't been harsh on the Dynamo graphs, really.
Okay.
They've realized that it's a major component in the design and development tool, so they try and make their changes compliant with Dynamo.
Okay. Can you use Dynamo to push parameters into families?
Yes, you can. It's a little bit more difficult, and it requires using shared parameters, which I love shared parameters. It is a little bit more difficult and a little bit more time-consuming to set it up, but it's way time-saving than adding them individually. I have actually never written a full shared parameter, like pushing them into families. I've always started, but then, like I said earlier, I fall down a rabbit hole and I start investigating something else.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
No problem.
Anybody else?
Where did you recommend starting as far as
Did you hear that, John?
I did not.
Sorry. Just wanted to ask, where did you start learning how to put the scripts together? Obviously, finding the packages is the easy part, but how to connect them so it looks like a transatlantic phone board.
The best place for getting support is dynamobim.com. That's a very active Dynamo forum. They're extremely helpful. And then also the Dynamo primer. You can just Google Dynamo primer, and it is an entire book that Dynamo has written that covers everything about their nodes, everything about their scripts, everything about how to use Dynamo. And it's a very, very comprehensive, very, very, very well thought out and written booklet. And it'll tell you the user interface, it'll tell you everything. It's very good. I cannot stress how good it is. It'll tell you how to do design script, which is the name of the code that it uses. And let me go back to it. I'm sorry. I'm like right on the edge of where the mouse is good and where it's not in our conference room. It'll tell you how you can write your own. Dynamo Primer is probably your best bet for getting started. And then once you start writing your own and you get stuck on something, Dynamo Forum is a great place to go. They're very helpful, very understanding, and very knowledgeable.
Are you familiar with Evolve Lab?
Familiar with what?
Evolve Lab.
John, are you familiar with Evolve Labs?
With who?
Evolve Labs?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not, personally that familiar with it.
Here, hang on, I'm gonna take the mic to Tracy here.
All right.
I'm fat, I don't move fast.
Evolve Labs helped me out a lot when I was having some problems with some of my scripts, or graphs, they call them in Dynamo, not scripts. Old school, sorry. Anyways, they were a really good resource, too, for me when I had questions. It's kind of like a forum, but they do other stuff, too.
Fantastic. I'll have to check them out. I got it. Evolve Labs. I like that. I'm always up for finding, new forums to ask questions, to learn from other people's questions.
Are there any other forums you'd recommend?
For Dynamo, pretty much everything I've ever needed has been taken care of at the forum.dynamobim.com. I definitely do want to check out Evolve Lab. I'll have to look into that one. But yeah, they cover pretty much everything related on here. They cover anything from basic user interface to being like, hey, I'm having trouble downloading packages and it's giving me this error, and the Dynamo Primer doesn't say anything about that error. Usually people will jump in real quick to help you out.
Anybody else? I think you wowed them, John.
Fantastic. Yeah, let me pop up my email up here. Again, I apologize that the script was being so laggy. I would like to show y'all more of it, but I feel like I'm spending so much time just trying to wrangle the view back in. Email me if y'all have any questions or feedback or anything. If you want a link to some of the Dynamo scripts that I'm going to provide, shoot me an email and I'll be able to send you either a Dropbox or a Google Drive link to it. I don't know which one I have them on. But yeah, thank you all for your time.
Look that up yet.